Good evening, family.
And welcome to
Kaiju I don't like Halloween. I honestly do not like Halloween.
Really?
Yeah, I honestly do not like Halloween. But I do like monsters. Don't like horror, but I do like monsters. So this year, for the month of October, we decided to watch kaiju movies, which is Japanese monster movies. And we watched 12 Godzilla movies in 7 days on the Hulu. This can be a spoiler-free talk, so no spoiler. So the first Godzilla movie we saw was called Godzilla vs. King I'm phonetically challenged. Sarah?
King Ghidorah.
There you go. So this was not the first movie in the series. It was the earliest movie that Hulu had up, so I decided it was a great starting point because Sarah knows this. I am very OCD about watching things in order. I don't care if the first movie is bad. I don't care if the first movie has nothing to do with the second movie. I have to watch it in order. So this was my first Japanese Godzilla movie.
Mine too.
Hers too. So I thought this was a great starting point. With this movie, the basic plot is a UFO arrives on Earth claiming to be from the future, and they want to avoid a disaster from happening, which causes Godzilla to cease to exist, but creates King Ghidorah. So this movie is from 1991. What I really enjoy about this movie, which they do with a lot of Japanese movies, which I should have seen coming, but honestly, I was just enjoying and not thinking. The title is not always as simple as it implies. So just because the title said something, there's usually more to the story than just that. The main message in the movie is that even if time travel is possible, it still won't change what will happen. So you might save a disaster from happening with scenario A, but that disaster will still occur. It just won't happen through scenario A. Sarah, what did you think of the movie as your first Japanese Godzilla movie?
First, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know much if there's going to be like a story beyond Godzilla coming and destroying the city. So I was really pleasantly surprised that there's actually, a story to it. And I really like the nostalgic feel to it because the graphics are so 90s and they do what they had. They do with their means, like with the amount of money and the technology restrictions of the time. And of course there are things you could point out, like, oh my gosh, that's obviously toy, or there's a scene where somebody's running and it looks really funny because
they obviously are running on
a platform
or they're moving with like something. They're running on the platform.
But this one, I think, more out of all of them that we'll get to, had quite a lot of plot twists.
Yes.
Yeah, and that made it kind of enjoyable.
Yeah. All of the 90s movie, the special effects, I mean, when you think about it now, it's so cheesy. But at that time, it was just amazing. The fact that they had to use toys and remote control stuff to mimic airplanes and tanks and all kinds of... You know what? That's probably why they don't use underwater stuff, because it would have been so hard to do some underwater stuff. But it's just like you look at it, and I'm not going to say it was so bad it was good, but it was just...
It's like that cheesy factor.
Yeah, that cheesy factor, and you enjoy it. Like, I really, really enjoy that.
Also, this is the only movie that used a portion of the Godzilla song. Remember how it goes like... Dun, 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 dun.
So, next was Godzilla vs. Mothra in 1992. This one was a dub. It's just... I mean, I understand people don't like to read subtitles, but when you dub a movie, it just makes it so less enjoyable. And the dub just looks off. Like Sarah showed me a couple of times, you could tell the wording was off, and there were times where they obviously changed certain words to make them shorter. They basically wanted to use shorter words. That way when the mouth stopped moving, the dubbing also stopped. A meteor hit Earth causing Batra to awaken, which then causes Mothra to awaken, and in the process of both of them awakening, that disturbs Godzilla.
And they all fight.
And they all fight. This movie focuses a lot on a specific battle. The title creatures aren't always the only ones that appeared. So this one focuses too much on certain battles, and it has less of a human story, and it's just battle.
Next one.
Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2, 1993. I don't know when number 1 was. There's a little bit of backstory, but I honestly feel like if I would have watched the first one, it would have been a lot more enjoyable and a lot more understandable, because you see certain elements of the movie, and I think even some of the robots, where they kind of hint that it was used before. They don't show previous footage, but they hint. They're like, oh, why don't we use this? It was so effective, or why don't we, like, it just seems like they're trying to tell you that this was used before without showing when it was used. Japan decides to create a mechanized Godzilla, which actually looks nothing like Godzilla.
No.
You know what it looks like? It looks like a Power Rangers Megazord.
Yeah.
It's like 2 or 3 robots that just came together, and they're like, oh, Mechagodzilla.
It seems like they kind of took inspiration from that a little bit. Kind of.
Possibly. Japan decides to create machines to battle Godzilla, to destroy Godzilla. So this one is subtitle, which once again makes it so much better, so much more enjoyable.
And unfortunately, this is the last time we'll have a subbed movie. All the rest were dubbed.
Really?
All the rest, yeah, all the rest were dubbed.
All the rest were dubbed?
I thought that the Mechagodzilla, although it didn't really look like Godzilla, I thought it was pretty cool to see a giant robot battle a mutated dinosaur lizard.
Yeah. I was introduced to a certain kaiju, and there's a really cute little story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really nice story. The message in this movie is life will always trump artificial life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool.
All right, next one.
Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. With the exception of a certain monster in the future movie, it's the oddest looking monster it's one of the oddest looking monsters. It's literally a Godzilla with crystals on its back. That's it.
Yeah, I remember you're like, what's on its back?
Yeah, and it was just crystals.
Yeah.
Just crystals. The story is that Godzilla's DNA went into space and
created Space Godzilla.
It can create a Space Godzilla. Basically, it regenerated Godzilla, and then they put a bunch of space stuff on it, and it was just crystals, and it just came to Earth.
At one point, there were crystals everywhere. We won't say how, but remember you said, where do those crystals come from?
Yeah, where do those crystals come from? And basically, Space Godzilla's power is just putting crystals everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it was yeah.
A little odd.
It was a little odd. The story made the movie a little bit more interesting, but honestly, it was just a simple plot. It was another movie. It was basically battle, recover, battle, recover, battle, recover. All right, let's find the superpower, or let's use our super duper power that will defeat this thing. Bam, defeated. Next is Godzilla versus Destroyah. And literally, it's Destroyah. Great movie, great story. So we saw so many Godzilla movies that honestly, we just wanted to binge watch all the movies. But Godzilla vs. Destroyah, this was also a very weird looking creature. It's the last movie in the Heisei era. So Godzilla is very sick, and they think that he's going to explode. And if he explodes,
the whole planet will
he had so much radiation inside of him that if he was to explode, the entire planet would explode with him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bunch of things that have to happen.
Oh, and there was a little kid. It wasn't little. There was a guy that had like the huge 90s glasses and the bowl cut haircut. Remember that kid? He was the one that was explaining.
Yeah.
And they had those like really like cheesy graphics like of a big explosion.
Yes.
And then they even suggested, they're like, what if we just like put him through like what did they say, a black hole? Or what if we just like absorb him or something?
No, they wanted to put him in the deepest parts of the ocean. Yeah. And they said even then it would
just suck down the ocean.
It would just suck down the ocean.
And then like the whole Earth would just suck down into it. And
Yeah, one thing I really like about this movie is that Godzilla shows emotion. Not gonna say to what or to who or why, but you see
I even
Godzilla.
got a little emotional.
Yeah, you see Godzilla show emotion, and it makes you realize that he's not just a monster; he's a living being. In the movie.
Yeah, that was very touching.
Yeah, it was.
He's not just a monster; he's a living being.
In the movie. So, I honestly believe that one of the main messages in the movie is that you don't have to be related to somebody for somebody to be family. Oh, and also moving on from the heist area, there was a character, and this was the only time that this has ever been done in any kaiju movies. There's a character, his name was Miki. I think in English he translated to Maki.
Yeah.
She was in every single Heisei era movie. She was in 8 Godzilla movies, which makes her the character that has been in the most kaiju movies ever.
And the same actress, too.
Same actress, yep. Next is Godzilla 2000. Since the start of the Millennium Era, every single movie resets, and it basically follows the 1954 movie. So basically, the movie Godzilla 2000, nothing happened between 1954 and Godzilla 2000. Then the next movie, nothing happened between 1954 and that movie. So it basically disregards all the movies before it, even the ones that came right before it.
Every movie created its own timeline.
Except for 2 movies that we will talk about soon.
Yeah.
So Godzilla 2000, Godzilla looked different. It started having that look that people associate Godzilla with nowadays. Before it looked more
Costumey.
dinosaurish, and this time it has more spikes. So in other words, this time it doesn't look like any creature that's ever lived. It has a lot more spikes. The fire is different. It moves differently, so I like that.
Well, this one also, it had a special effect that right before he's about to breathe fire, the spikes on his back.
Well, that's when it started.
Yeah.
The entire Millennium Era does that.
Yeah, I like that.
Horrible dubbing.
Yeah.
Horrible dubbing. All the 2000 movies are just absolutely bad dubbing. It just doesn't make sense with the mouths, and sometimes they say one thing and you're like, yeah, you
could tell.
You could tell they changed some words around. Interesting story. Enemy was a little weird, and there's a lot of CG used. Again, 2000s, that's where all the CGs came into effect, and people started using CG for every single thing possible. So this is when a lot of CG starts being used.
And that isn't necessarily always a good thing, because you could definitely...
Yeah, so there's less toy effects and more CG effects. All right,
Next.
Godzilla versus Megaguirus. They use the same suit that they used from Godzilla 2000, but they disregard the Godzilla 2000 story.
Yeah! When Godzilla vs. Megaguirus started, I was like, wait, is this a continuation of the previous story? Because the Godzilla looked exactly the same.
It took a second or two for us to realize, because one, they opened with the 1954 scenes. So we're like, oh, they're going to explain everything from 1954 till today. No, they just 1954 and present time. So they want to destroy Godzilla by shooting a black hole at it. Genius, right? Well, when that happens, a ancient insect comes into our time and it lays eggs, and then it creates a huge monster and a bunch of stuff happens. This is when Japan starts to think of Godzilla as an enemy, because for a very long time in the 90s and the 50s and 60s, Godzilla was looked upon as a protector, and Japan was his territory. And now the story is that Godzilla wants to destroy Japan because of either energy or radiation, or he wants to use nuclear fission and plasma, which is another movie, to acquire energy and replenish himself.
It also shows like a highly, almost like an army-like defense force in each movie. I'm not saying it's the same defense force.
Yeah, I think that started in 2000.
Yeah, it started in 2000, where it's like they had a defense force. It's a very army-like, and their sole purpose is the prevention of Godzilla attacks.
And to destroy.
They don't talk at all about him being a guardian. It's literally like he's a menace. At one point, it was like, think of our children,
Yeah.
You're like, think of our children's
we
future.
need to destroy Godzilla because think of our children's future. And They'll have no future if we don't destroy Godzilla. This was the first time I remember that Godzilla actually struggles.
Yeah.
He actually legitimately struggles.
Because the creature that they created in this movie, although not impressive at first, it becomes super impressive.
Yeah. So Godzilla actually struggles. But
And really gross, kind of. I thought.
Yeah, it was gross. So the next one, Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Giant monsters, all-out attack. Really, really enjoy this one.
You did?
I really enjoy this one because, again, they make Godzilla a menace, but they bring mythical elements into it, saying that there's these three guardians, and we have to awaken the guardians. At first, the guardians don't seem nice, but actually they are trying there to protect Earth, and Godzilla has to fight all of them. And this movie just made Godzilla look like a complete beast. Absolute beast. He literally had to fight 3 monsters, one of them twice, almost 3 times. Yeah, Godzilla is a beast in this movie. Really enjoyed this one.
What I enjoyed about this one was they made it look like the last time anybody has ever seen or heard of Godzilla was in the 50s, and people have almost forgotten about it. It made it seem like people didn't think that what happened was really,
Was real.
that what happened was real. At one point, this lady was saying, Godzilla, that was just a legend. And then Godzilla comes out.
And what's funny is the people who claim that they don't remember it are much older than 50.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they don't remember it. Great build-up, great epic battle at the end, a lot of fun to watch battles in between.
Oh, and I think it was really cool because the last time we saw King Ghidorah was more of a menace. This time it was more like trying to protect.
Yeah, this time
and
it
he
was
looked so cool.
Yeah,
didn't he?
Yeah. The next 2 movies actually go together, which is Godzilla against Mechagodzilla 2002 and Godzilla Tokyo s.o.s. Again, they acknowledge the 1954 Godzilla movie, but they don't acknowledge anything after it or anything in between this one and that one. They continue the story. Story was okay. The really cool part is that they made a really Godzilla looking like monster. It literally looked like Godzilla put on some armor, Mechagodzilla, which is actually what it should be. I mean, if it's called Mechagodzilla, it should be just Godzilla, both mechanical parts.
Yeah, this time they did right on the design of it.
Yes. So they do build up to a more human-esque story. Basically, even though the story is all about how we're going to defeat Godzilla, there's human versus human struggle. There's a human story. There, you start connecting with the characters instead of connecting with Godzilla. And that's both good and bad. I mean, some of us just want to see Godzilla fighting other creatures, and sometimes we want a little bit more of a human side to the story. It was spread throughout the movie.
Yeah.
So that was
good character development.
Yeah, good character development. So they still need to destroy Godzilla. So they find the original 1954 Godzilla's bones. How there's another one, they never say. They find the original 1954 Godzilla's bones, and they use the bones to create Mechagodzilla. And if they're using the bones of the original 1954 Godzilla, you have an idea of what's probably going to happen next. But anyways, moving on to the sequel, which when this one ended, it was so obvious that there was going to be a sequel. The sequel is called Godzilla Tokyo s.o.s. This is a direct follow-up, even though they do not use any of the same characters, which is a shame. They do use the same...
No, Akane. Akane is in there very briefly, though.
You sure?
Yeah, very briefly.
Okay. So they do use the same organization and everything, and another creature does appear. The basic plot is Godzilla didn't die, Mechagodzilla didn't explode, so they are fixing Mechagodzilla to fight Godzilla. However, Mothra appears and tells them, since they're using the bones from 1954 Godzilla, that needs to go back in the water and rest because humans should not mess with the dead. Once it's dead, it's dead. Again, they still continue with the human story.
And the next one is what?
Godzilla Final Wars 2004. So this one, Sarah has a lot to say about this one. I only have one thing to say. You know when you look at a movie and you read the title, the summary, maybe even the character listing or the list of characters that are going to appear, you're like, wow, this looks like a great movie. You know what? This movie has some great potential. Yeah, that's how I felt with this one. But that just, the potential didn't come out. Go ahead, Sarah. Take it away.
So this one is the last movie in the Millennium series. Final wars, amazing, great. Let's do something that's big.
And again, they don't acknowledge any other movie. So it's literally 1954, Final Wars. That's it.
This was supposed to be the last Japanese Godzilla movie ever. And Toho even destroyed their huge water set.
Yes.
So that's how final it was. So it seems like a bunch of people got together and said, what can we do to make this movie as big as possible? So they must have made a list. Okay, we have him, fight him, add in some characters, fight him. Okay, and it sounds good on paper, but when you're watching it, and it's about 2 hours long, a little over 2 hours long. It's the longest one that we have watched. But when you're watching it, it was like, it got to a point that by 1 hour and 45 minutes in, my brain started to feel numb.
Yeah.
Because it was like battle, tiny bit of break, battle, tiny bit of break, battle, tiny bit of break.
Yeah, it was.
Villains appear, battle with the villains, and then they did some kind of, like Matrix kind of things.
Yeah, they were putting martial arts in the Godzilla movie.
And which at first seemed interesting.
It does, but then you're like, this is Godzilla, not martial arts.
And then there was this long period where you don't know whether Godzilla's back or not. Is he gone? What's going on?
Yeah, he's fighting that he suddenly just appears and like kills creatures.
Yeah, it was just so weird. And then like the villain starts to become really flamboyant and like maniacal. And I get the idea of wanting to make this big, but there were just too many parts of it. Squeezed into a 2 hour long movie,
And I mean, I remember you telling me, because I didn't realize it, but didn't you say Godzilla doesn't appear till like...
Yeah, Godzilla didn't appear
till like halfway through
the movie.
So you're sitting there halfway through the movie with no Godzilla. American Godzilla, which we decided to watch last because 1, I knew it was the worst one. 2, it was American. And 3, I wanted to watch all the Japanese ones first to show Sarah what the Godzilla movies are intended to be. Godzilla fans and all kaiju fans over know that this is not a Godzilla movie. They actually refer to the monster as Zilla, not as Godzilla, because there are just so many things wrong with it. But it's funny to see what a American 1998 semi-big budget movie looks like against a Japanese movie. Because the 1998 movie was like so much more advanced than the 2000 movies.
It was more advanced than the one that came out in
like 2003.
2003.
Yeah, so it was so much more advanced, and you could tell everything was cleaner. But I mean, that's part of Japan. Japan's movie industry doesn't spend tens of millions of dollars on one movie. So it's not a bad movie.
No.
The thing is, when you compare it to Godzilla movies, it's like, how can you even call it that? So it's one of those things where it's not a bad movie, it's a bad Godzilla movie.
Because it doesn't look like Godzilla.
It doesn't look like Godzilla. It's not, the story is not Godzilla. It's a human story with Godzilla in it. Instead of a Godzilla movie with some humans inside of it, it's a human movie with a little bit of Godzilla. Okay, so let's go back and rewind a little bit. So which one was your favorite? One and only favorite?
Godzilla against Megaguirus, 2002.
Okay. Mine was Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah All Out Attack. I just really like that story. I like a lot of elements inside of it. So I just really enjoy that.
What did these movies, did it teach you anything? Did it reveal anything?
I mean, I've always been a fan of monsters. So this movie just makes me want to go out and watch more monster movies on Hulu and Netflix and other legal services, of course. And again, I don't like not too big of a fan of Halloween. I don't like all the horror and everything. So this was a great way to still be in the spirit of Halloween.
In your own way.
In my own way. How do you feel about these movies, since this is the first time you've seen Godzilla movies?
I've always been interested in kaiju movies. I know that kaiju movies are pretty big in Japan. So I thought it would be interesting to just sit down and binge watch a bunch of them and, you know, get a general reaction. And my general reaction is that they're really fun. I think they're really fun.
They are. They're a fun watch.
They're
Very
really fun to watch. And I kind of like, I begun to more, you know, appreciate more Japanese storytelling, especially when it comes to the sci-fi side of things. I really like that, because when American movies have a sci-fi edge to it, they use a lot of really high-tech special effects, and they develop stories in a certain way. But in the Japanese movies, it has a really good balance for the most part. So to sum it up, we saw 12 Godzilla movies on Hulu in 1 week. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
As part of Kaiju Time! Anyways, we are the Pear Tree family. Thank you for watching.
We have a lot more videos coming up. We do food reviews, travel reviews, nerd topics, lifestyle videos. So make sure you check our channel out and watch some of our other videos, and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be aware whenever we post a new video, which is at least once per week. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye-bye!
Bye.